AI is everywhere, but so are the risks. In today's chat, I sit down with Bill Reyor, the head of security consulting at Modus Create, and we unpack the real risk behind generative AI and using LLMs in the development process. If you're developing AI-powered tools or using AI in your development process, you're definitely going to want to listen in today. Let's get into it. All right, Bill, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate your time. But let's start the discussion around you. Give us a little bit about who you are and your background.
So I'm Bill Reyor. I lead the security consulting practice at Modus Create. My team and I deliver full stack security services from cloud and application security assessments to remediation engineering and security program development. My background spans DevSecOps, AI and LLM security, and software supply chain protection.
With all of this new AI tools and the capabilities that we're learning about and gathering, what risk do these things introduce? And what is your kind of perspective on organizations out there on how they're mitigating or dealing with these risks?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, we have to think about we're adding complexity to existing applications. We're trying to use AI and LLMs to accelerate existing workflows. And when we do that, we're expanding the attack surface in ways that traditional security models don't fully address. So we see new attack styles like prompt injection, model inversion, data poisoning, and that can end up essentially manipulating systems or gaining access to sensitive information that we just don't want to happen. As far as what companies are doing, this is very new for everyone, and so on one hand we have new models, new governance frameworks like OWASP's top 10 for LLM applications that provide some guidance on how to test, how to identify some of these risks. But on the other, everyone is sort of trying to get to market first. And so companies are really struggling balancing risk with getting to market as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. Like the more complex our systems are, the more points of failure and the more points of attack, the vulnerabilities. That makes a lot of sense. A term that was new to me, which is generative monoculture. Can you tell us what that term means and maybe some real world scenario where that would pose a risk?
Yeah, absolutely. Originally, this is sort of framed in biology where you would have, say, a crop or something you were growing, and it would suffer some kind of disease, and it would just wipe out that entire crop across multiple farms. And so in computer software, we've seen similar problems where when we adopt identical technology across the board, across multiple enterprises, any vulnerability that's found in that software, well, that risk just is multiplied, right? And so people are hunting for these kinds of risks. And so we've seen risks like that be exploited and create a huge impact. So probably the two quick examples that come to mind are the Heartbleed vulnerability, which created a bit of a firestorm, and then vulnerabilities in the Windows operating system. And we saw things like WannaCry happen because everyone was using Windows. Everyone had these same sort of exposures. So a generative monoculture is basically using the same set of foundational models and the same key technologies, and any risk in that system, essentially it's exploitable across anyone who's decided to adopt those sets of technologies.
It's an interesting concept to me as you're talking. It's like you think that scale, AI building systems at scale makes a lot of sense, but it's almost like the imperfections of human coding is a security is a plus when it comes to security. It helps keeps things different enough that figuring out one flaw for one system doesn't mean that same flaw exists in other systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And we look at last year with, say, everyone had adopted CrowdStrike as their endpoint EDR,
Right,
right? And
right.
I don't know where you were when that happened, but for me, I got stuck in a Detroit airport, which was not fun at all, for 2.5 days. So there is a key risk, I think, when everything is identical, because however obscure it is or however hard it is to exploit, if somebody does find something, then that impact just becomes huge because the footprint is immense.
So, I mean, I know that this isn't really, I mean, AI obviously introduces lots of risk and things are changing, so those risks will adapt. So what are some immediate or critical steps that organizations that are trying to implement LLMs or use LLMs in development practices, things that they can do to deal with generative monoculture or some of these other risks that arise?
When people started moving to the cloud, there was this focus on adapting a multi-cloud strategy. And we can sort of think of that as a very similar blueprint to diversify our AI dependencies. Test out different models, adopt different kinds of models in your stack. That way, you're not locked in to just one thing. The other thing that organizations can do is apply adversarial testing. So a technology that I've recently become familiar with is made by a company called PromptFoo, and essentially it allows for adversarial testing of LLM applications. It basically will dynamically generate different types of prompt injection to help you test your application, and this can be built right into your CI/CD pipeline as you're building and testing these applications. So it gives you an instant sort of sanity check on how vulnerable is this application to these attack techniques.
AI tools feel like these magic creatures that we don't know anything about, but really we're using the same principles we've always used to deal with these things, and just acknowledging that there's more complexities, there's more attack surfaces like this. But at the end of the day, leading with value, doing the testing, yeah, will get us back to safety.
You kind of hit the nail on the head when when we're framing risk around AI and LLM applications. What are the first few steps? And probably the biggest thing to do is an inventory, right? And this is the boring stuff no one wants to do, but you can't protect what you don't know. So you need to go out throughout your organization and start to inventory those AI use cases, what data sources they're using, and what dependencies they're being built on. So that's like a foundational step one.
If you're deploying without a strategy to mitigate AI risk, you're not innovating, you're inviting trouble. For more information, make sure to check out Bill's blog. Otherwise, stay safe out there.